Aldrin Sampear on SAfm.
It is 10 minutes after 5 o'clock. We're in conversation next with Annabell Lebethe, who is the Chief Executive Officer at the Southern African Music Rights Organization, which has recorded a 15% increase in revenue over the past 12 months to 593 million rand in 2023. The organization has tightened its belt and lowered its cost-to-income ratio. To share some of the insights from the performance and how this development will benefit artists, we are joined by the CEO, Annabell. Annabell, good evening. Thank you so much for making time for us. So what do you attribute this increase to?
Good evening, Aldrin, and good evening to the listeners. It's attributable, firstly, to, I think, improved collection practices. We have, as you indicated, focused a lot on expenditure management and therefore directly seeking to reduce the costs that we spend for operational purposes. But also, I think we've really focused on licensees and licensing the under-licensed, but making sure that we are collecting from music users who do have licenses across the spectrum of uses.
And with that said, where would SAMRO say some of the leakages have been identified, where you had some of the leaks coming through?
I wouldn't necessarily call them leakages. I think it's areas of improvement that we seek to attain. So we know that South Africans generally, from a compliance point, we're not a compliant nation. So we are under-collecting from music users. So the conversations and the negotiations that we constantly are having with users of music, which belongs to our members who are copyright owners, we definitely need to be improving on the collections and the licensing of the under-licensed. So that's one area of concern. I think we've improved on, obviously, as I said, the cost-to-income ratio, where we have seen improvements and not necessarily leakages in the way that we are redirecting our efforts to making sure that members accrue the most benefit, therefore the greatest value from the royalty.
Yeah. And the thing is that cost-to-income ratio, for me, it's quite a significant achievement here. If you at some point were standing at 50% and now, 40%, and it's now decreased to 25%. So something did happen. I know that you don't want to refer to it as leakages, but there's something that was happening there where for every 1 rand, 40 rand was spent on expenditure.
Yeah. Look, I think one would attest that to lack of efficiencies and prudent cost management and expenditure management. So we've taken a very deliberate focus on forecasting better, on budgeting better, on making sure that where we do definitely need the resources, we allocate them accordingly, because we know that every rand spent will accrue greater benefit to members. So the opposite of it is that, we've tightened our belts extremely over the period that we're reporting these financial figures for, to make sure that more money does actually accrue to our members. So it has been a combination of activities, a combination of efforts that really said in some instances, we don't need the resources that we are expending to chase after the royalty revenue that we owe to the organization and directly to our members.
And speak to us about the impact that streaming services have had on how SAMRO goes about its business and also the revenue that it's able to collect.
We're seeing a growth in the right direction in terms of digital streaming platforms. So that would be the Netflix, the iTunes, Amazon Music, the like of subscription-based streaming services. And we have recorded a 9% growth specifically in the money, in the license fees that we're collecting from digital service platforms. And globally, that is in the right direction. So there is alignment from a local South African context in terms of what is happening globally. And we do expect that the digital stream itself will become a huge driver going forward for where revenue sits for members. So it is an area of growth, and we're paying particular attention to raising revenues from those particular streaming platforms.
Is SAMRO at all involved in conversations with streaming services or even social media platforms where they allow for music to be used from artists, but then there are disputes that are raised by recording labels and so forth that they're not getting money for their buck?
We're not involved at the international level, and you might be citing the most recent decision by Universal Music Group to pull all the repertoire from TikTok specifically. And different jurisdictions have got different norms and standards or practices that apply. Suffice to say that the context in South Africa is slightly different, in that we are seeing more positive responses to DSPs from all the negotiation processes that we undertake with them, and that there generally is a recognition of the need to comply and to compensate music users accordingly. So it's not I wouldn't say it's a direct relationship with the international group, with what we've seen the Universal Group do, but we are positively growing awareness and stakeholder management in that respect from a local perspective.
Yeah. Does it concern you at all, that particular relationship between the record labels as well as the streaming service, considering, for instance, the work that you are doing as SAMRO, which is, of course, also speaks to looking after artists?
Yeah, look, Aldrin, I'd say that obviously healthy relations between the record labels and the DSPs does augur well ultimately for creators, and that's all that we should be worried about. And I think everybody recognizes that, and our efforts are in pushing that particular agenda. But at the same time, it's an area that I don't speak on behalf of record labels. Yeah. I don't speak on behalf of the DSPs themselves. But I know that the healthy music ecosystem is greatly dependent on the reciprocal bilateral agreements that are then signed, and in acknowledgement of creators' work and the value that is required for creators.
Then what about the relationship that SAMRO has with your clients, the artists? Last year, after the passing on of Zahara, the Minister of Arts and Culture, Zizu Kodwa, said that there was a meeting that happened between the CEO, I assume that it's yourself, as well as the chairperson, and they committed. Rather, he said that I challenged SAMRO to protect the well-being and livelihood of musicians. I'm pleased and support of SAMRO's ongoing investigation of the exploitation of musicians by record labels.
So yes, that meeting was with the chairperson, myself, and Minister Kodwa. And in the meeting, there was a discussion about, the well-being generally of artists. And I think that the minister expressed his sentiments about seeking to see that musicians are taken care of and artists generally. We did indicate in the meeting to the minister that our mandate as an NPC is very limited to our members who we represent. We do not represent the music industry in its entirety. And hence my comment earlier on about a well-functioning music industry ecosystem is ultimately good for creators. So, for example, if I might add, Aldrin, we take care of our members through a retirement annuity fund that we have established that benefits members directly, as well as a funeral cover, among many other sort of corporate social investment programs that we have. But I do think that it's a much broader conversation that not only includes SAMRO, but also includes other stakeholders in the value chain who operate in the industry and want to see a healthy and functioning music industry. Because, again, ultimately, we all exist to make sure that it's the creators who accrue greatest benefit.
And what do your books tell us about the unclaimed royalties and also companies, entities that owe SAMRO?
Well, let me start with undocumented works that you might be referring to as unclaimed royalties. So we realize that it's a liability that sits on our balance sheet, and it's money that does not belong to SAMRO. So over the years, we've been working together with our publisher and composer author members to make sure that liability is reduced, in that we seek greater transparency in the work that sits within that particular pool for unclaimed royalties, so that the creators themselves can then claim music that belongs to them. And I must say there has to be legitimate claims of use. We have approved with the board a policy that will help us decrease that percentage going forward. If that money does then sit within the liability and the balance sheet of SAMRO, we, once it's prescribed, we allocate it back into the pool that then gets distributed back to members. So it's an area of great concern, and as I said, we've got programs because we know where the root cause of the problem emanates from. And then in response to your other question, sorry, Aldrin,
Sure. There is companies that owe SAMRO.
Oh, right. So I would greatly encourage music users to do the right thing by paying for that copyright that doesn't belong to them, firstly, and we do that through licensing. Secondly, if you are infringing or you are not complying with the obligations as per the license agreement, we will have no other recourse but to take legal action, because we are custodians of our members' copyright, and therefore our members entrust us to pursue those music users who are not compliant. So we will take legal action as is required. Yep. And for music users who are not licensed, please note that we will actually be coming and knocking on your door, because the time has come in South Africa where we have to recognize the value of music, and we cannot be going after music users and pleading for them to do the right thing. We expect them to do the right thing, and the Act compels us as a CMO to seek the right thing to be done for copyright owners.
Yeah. Are you able to quantify how much is owed to SAMRO?
Unfortunately, I wouldn't be able to do that, because there's variation in terms of the tariffs. There's different users. So a broadcaster would not have the same tariff, for example, as a pub or restaurant or retail store. So it's very difficult to quantify. But suffice to say that we set ourselves a target of achieving 1 billion rand by FY26, and we believe that 1 billion rand is attainable, because we know that music usage forms part and parcel of the DNA of many organizations. And so you can imagine having a radio station where there's no music, right? In every aspect of daily life, there's music infused in that. So we do believe that 1 billion rand is a representation of the money that is available for collection that is due to our rights holders.
Okay, thank you so much for your time. That is Annabell Lebethe, who is a Chief Executive Officer at SAMRO. 0614-104-107. You can also drop me an X at Aldrin Sampear, and our studio line is 086 000 2032.